What are the job opportunities for bachelor's, master's, and PhD level students in industry? What are the specific skill sets that is required in such jobs? What are the technical and non-technical challenges that they face? And does our education system equip our students for such industrial jobs? These are the kinds of questions which are at the top of every engineering student's mind. Not just engineering students, but even their professors and even the students' parents. And who better to answer these questions than someone who has had extensive technological experience through his stint in an industry first and then as an engineering professor. Thankfully, we have just such an individual with us here today. He's Professor Anandaroop Bhattacharya. So Professor Bhattacharya is currently a faculty member in the Mechanical Engineering Department of IIT Kharagpur. And at the institute level, he has also been the Associate Dean of International Relations and Ranking. Formerly, he was a senior professional in Intel, General Motors, and General Electric. He's also an accomplished singer, and he has been instrumental in setting up the Academy of Classical and Folk Arts here at IIT Kharagpur. I'm humbled to call him a friend, and by virtue of him being a senior here in the department by almost a decade, I have the privilege of calling him not as Professor Bhattacharya, but very affectionately as Anandaroop Da. So Anandaroop Da, a very warm welcome to my small YouTube channel. A big thanks to you for sparing a large chunk of your time here with us today. I'm sure all the people in our community will be really, really grateful to you. So before we can get into the hardcore contentious questions, let me first start with a nice sweet question by requesting you to please recount to us the very interesting career trajectory that you have followed by first after starting out from IIT Kharagpur as an undergraduate student, and then going to your PhD in the US, then your stint in the industry, and then coming back to academia as a faculty member at IIT Kharagpur.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeevan Jyoti, and thank you for that very kind introduction. I'm overwhelmed. You have overstated quite a few things. So thank you. Anyway, it's very kind of you. Just correct that I am one of the co-PICs of the Academy of Classical and Folk Arts. It's probably, I was not instrumental in setting it up by any stretch of imagination. I've contributed whatever I could. You said it's a very interesting career trajectory. It's very kind of you again. So some people may look at my career trajectory and say, oh, what a confused person this is. He doesn't know what he wants in life. Anyway, and so that is how it's probably my nature to a certain extent that I'm a little adventurous that way, and sometimes I also get bored after a while. So which, as a result of which I have tried both academia and industry, etc. Now coming back to my what I did in very short, as you know, just like you, I did my undergraduate over here. I graduated in 1997 with a BTech in mechanical engineering. So I'm quite old, as you know. Yeah. So what I was saying is, after my BTech in 1997, I moved to USA for my what they call graduate studies over there. I went to University of Colorado at Boulder, and there I did my master's in 1999 and then PhD in 2001. Now, what happened was, during this stint of my both master's and PhD, I was fortunate to have a supervisor who was a very well-known name in the history, in the realm of heat transfer. His name is Roop Mahajan. But more interestingly, Professor Mahajan, after his PhD from Cornell University, spent close to 15 years in AT&T Bell Labs, where he was an extremely successful industrial R&D researcher, and rising up to the rank of what is called the Bell Labs Fellow. Fellow, as many of you may know, is the highest rank that someone can achieve in the technical ladder in a technology company. So that's the highest rank, and many a times equivalent to a vice president if somebody follows the managerial track. So my supervisor, my advisor was a Bell Labs Fellow, and after that he moved to University of Colorado as a professor, and he set up this center, what was called the Center for Advanced Manufacturing and Packaging of Electronics. So I had the fortune to work with him, And by virtue of being in his research group as well as being part of this center, which was an industry academia consortium, I had a direct exposure in a lot of industry related problems. And probably that is where both my advisors' influence as well as the exposure in that industry academia research center, that kind of sparked that interest, sparked my research interest or my interest in applied research. Okay. And also what happened was during that time, I was the recipient of what is called the IBM Cooperative Fellowship. Okay. I got it at the end of my first year. I don't deserve any credit for that. It was just, I had to submit the proposal. It was my advisor's proposal and it went in my name. And therefore I became what is called the IBM Co-op Fellow. But the good thing was I had to do something that was relevant to the electronics industry. So my project was definitely in the applied mode. And I had to justify why IBM should fund me. Okay. So as a result, when I graduated, I got a job at Intel. It was not as easy as I'm talking about because as I said, I graduated in 2001, December 2001. And when the whole world was going through a deadly recession, and to top that, just about a month before my defense in October of 2001, 9/11 happened. So there was no jobs anywhere. And then suddenly I got an email one day and I applied and anyway, somehow I got that job. So therefore I joined Intel in Chandler, Arizona, which is where, the focus of their packaging research was in 2002, March 25, 2002. So actually next month, I'm going to complete 20 years of my professional career. Okay. So, but anyway, for certain reasons, which I'm not going to get into the details into, staying in the US and settling there was not an option for me. So therefore, I returned to India in 2003. And as you have said, I worked in the industry in India, in Intel, actually Intel India in Bangalore. And then I had a short stint at General Motors, actually. And after that, I moved to General Electric, which is GE Global Research Center in Bangalore. As you know, GE Global Research for core mechanical engineering is one of the most prestigious R&D research organizations across the world, especially their headquarters in upstate New York, where they have done some very pioneering research, and so has Intel Labs. So I was very fortunate to be associated with two of the world's most respected companies and working with some extraordinarily smart people. Okay. So that I do consider myself fortunate to have them as my colleagues and some of them as my very close friends, and that friendship continues till today. Why the General Motors I would like to mention is I joined GM and from Intel because at that time I was told and I was convinced that I should move into a company which does core mechanical engineering, because for a mechanical engineer working in an electronics company, and that too in India, there was a certain, my career was reaching some kind of a plateau. And what happened was 18 months into my employment in GM, and let me tell you, the GM was a very high profile. The India Science Lab had some extraordinarily bright people, about 100 of them. But then what happened was one fine day, about 18 months into my employment, there was a change in leadership over there, and the new leader, the new CTO of GM, General Motors, decided to shut down India Science Lab. And therefore, I even went through the experience of a layoff. Okay, nothing new. And the reason I'm trying to tell you is these are all part and parcel of an industrial job. Okay, you get something, but there are certain risks involved, and we have to be prepared for such eventualities.
I'm sure some of your junior colleagues are facing the same scenario right now, as more automotive companies are packing shop.
That's true, but what I understand, at least in India and even in US also, the job market is very, very bright, very upbeat now. So maybe automotive sector, maybe the traditional automotive sector may be suffering something, but again, there is a whole new thrust in electric mobility. So, and probably I'll come to that. People, it's very important to be nimble and to pick up new skills,
right?
To pick up new skills where the industry is heading.
Yes, I will
in order
probe
to
you on
survive.
that. I
In
will
order to
pick your brain on
survive,
that.
it's very important. Huh?
Absolutely.
Okay, sure.
Yes,
I will tell
I will
whatever
pick your brain on that. We have a lot of
whatever
questions.
best I know. I'll tell
So
you.
this GM stint was in which period? 2000?
2010 to 2012. You remember that is when we met first. You were a student over here.
Yes,
And you had
I
come
was a
for
PhD student. Yes.
yeah, and you had come along with your senior Devoprio in some hotel in Kolkata.
Yes,
There was
I
some
remember that.
Indo-Canadian
Yeah.
workshop, and I was invited by your advisor Shumon
Yes.
to come and be as an industry participant over there. So yeah, that time I was in GM. But anyway, so I went through a layoff experience as well. Thankfully, I got a job pretty soon. But yeah, but let me tell you, those few weeks were were not.
Yes.
Were quite stressful, I must say.
Yeah.
When you have a family, when you have dependents, and you suddenly lose your job, it's
and
not.
And this is for no fault of yours.
That is part of industry. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. If if it's a performance issue and you lose your job, that's one thing. You are prepared.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, if the CTO says, I'm going to address this crowd, and you go to the conference room and then he says, I have decided to close down this group, it hits you.
Yeah.
For a few minutes, none of us realize what has happened.
You don't know how to process the news.
Yeah, we don't know how to react, and suddenly, okay.
Yeah.
And this happens, and let me tell you, this happens very suddenly. It can. You may not have a single inkling of that.
Okay. So I'm really grateful that you brought this up, because our future professionals, people who may be watching this, they need to be prepared for such an eventuality.
Yes. There are, see, in every facet of life, everywhere there is a balancing factor. Okay.
Yeah.
Some good things, some bad things, some rewards, some risks. Higher the reward, higher the risk. And
so you started at G in 2011, right?
2012.
2012, right? Okay. All right.
So G experience was quite varied. You know what happened was, because G does everything under the sun, right? You have G aviation, you have G oil and gas, you have G power, you have G industrial systems, you have G healthcare.
Yeah.
There used to be water also. There used to be even materials, G plastics, which they sold off to another company. So
instead of General Electric, they should probably be general. So general engineering.
Yes, very, very general. And when you are in that, so these are business units. And then the G Global Center, it's a horizontal, cuts across the research organization, cuts across all these business units. So depending on where you are, you get an opportunity you get a glimpse into all these industries. So that was an enriching experience. So I worked in the energy sector, I worked in the healthcare sector, a little bit in transportation as well, G locomotives, you may know. Then appliances, which they sold out, but G at some point, even a few years back, used to make, refrigerators and ovens and washing machines and induction cooktops, etc. So I didn't know that induction cooktop has so much of thermal engineering inside. So that's a varied experience I got. It was very enriching. I didn't get a chance to work directly on any project with aviation, but my teammates were working on that, and through their work, I got an exposure to that field as well. So yeah, therefore that's and then I joined here in 2015, and thereafter, so I've been teaching, I've been doing research,
and the rest is continued history.
No,
I'm witness to that.
And I have now a reasonably sized research group.
Yes.
And good students who are doing good work. And I'm also enjoying the teaching and interactions with students. Of course, last 2 years have not been that great because I miss the presence of the students in class, to be honest.
We all have. We all have.
We all do.
Yes.
And, so anyway,
I miss the touch of the chalkboard.
Yeah.
and yeah, especially the classes, the way that our classes used to be set, your class almost always preceded mine, at least for the third year.
Yeah, right.
So heat transfer goes before mechanics of solids. So
correct. Yeah.
All right. So thank you very much for that brief recount. I'm sure we are missing out on many anecdotal stories, but in the interest of time, we'll move on. Okay. So overall, your basic training has been in mechanical engineering, starting from your undergraduate days through your PhD, hardcore thermal science and engineering. So during your industrial stint, what kind of technical and non-technical skills do you think you had to use the most? So I know it's hard to differentiate, like you are applying yourself as human intelligence as opposed to artificial intelligence to various engineering problems. And when you do so, you do not really differentiate between what you learned as an undergraduate, what you learned as a PhD student. But perhaps if you could give us some glimpse of what kind of technical and non-technical things you had to use.
Sure, absolutely. So before that, let me tell you something about what are the skills that any industrial, what are the broad skills that is expected out of an industry professional. Okay, whether it's R&D or whether it's more of execution type or project management, whatever it is. There are three primary skills. The first one is your technical depth, technical knowledge. Sure. See, you have to be sound. Your fundamentals have to be sound. Okay, and your fundamental understanding should be very good, very firm, and that gives you the base. That gives you the foundation based on which you can work. You can talk, you can converse, you can communicate with confidence. Because if that is weak, then people are not going to listen to you, right? So it's very important. Now, the second thing is about what I would say the strategic vision. Okay. Now, what do I mean by that? It's not about just the CEO, CTO, CXOs, or the VP engineering or the technical fellows who should have this. At every stage, however junior you are, you should know that what are the strategic objectives of your organization and try to justify that how are you contributing in your small way in that direction. Okay. And you have to ask yourself this question right from day one. Why am I doing this? Okay. Or why am I learning this? Is it important? Is it going to contribute to the company's strategic direction? Okay. And this is very important, Jivan, especially for technical people like us. We love technology. There are certain areas, domains, which are close to our heart. Okay. But then the industry direction is very dynamic, especially when you are talking about high-tech industry, semiconductor industry. Here products, technologies become obsolete. It's a very fast-moving industry, and you have to keep pace with that. And that means that sometimes you have to let go something which is very close to your heart. Okay, and this sometimes is very difficult for researchers like us. Okay.
So let me interject you there for just a moment. As I've already mentioned to you, I had mentioned about this upcoming interview to the small group of people who follow up in the community of our YouTube channel. And some of them had posed some questions. And one of the important questions they had asked was that, what's the difference between industrial research and development versus academic research? I think what you just mentioned answers that question, that in academic research, you are kind of free to pursue as your heart wants, which may not always be possible in industry.
Yes. Industry, you have to give the business reason why you are doing what you are doing. Okay. And then higher up you go, the more strong that is. Okay. So this is important. But let me complete what I was saying, and then I will come back to this in more detail. So I talked about technical knowledge, and I talked about the strategic vision, that thinking. Okay. And the third one is about your mentorship abilities. Are you a good mentor? Okay. Will you be able to work? Will you be able to lead a project working with other people? And finally, working as a team, motivate them. And remember, when you're leading a project, it doesn't mean that you have to know everything. That's why you have experts. You form your team with experts, right? How to get the best out of them, how to motivate them with words of appreciation, with rewards, with proper direction. Okay, so this mentoring ability is very important. Okay, and sometimes it's not just your team. You have to be very selfless over there. Okay, you should not be, and this is what sometimes many people, this is a quality you have to develop. You have to have a big heart. You have to be good here. You have to be good here. Okay, you should not say that, why should I mentor him? What's in it for me? It will come back later sometime, not immediate. But you should feel that satisfaction by enabling somebody to realize his or her dream. And trust me that when he or she does it, you will be remembered. when your mentee gets appreciated, he or she will say that, this is because Professor Jivan Jyoti Chakraborty was the person who motivated me. I'm indebted to him.
Right. So this is something we are quite accustomed to seeing within our academic field. So as teachers, as supervisors, advisors, we always have this feeling naturally that we want our students to perform better than we ever did, to go beyond
Absolutely.
what we ever could
Absolutely.
do. So it's quite natural. So, but it is very heartening for me to listen to these words that such kind of feeling also exists in industry.
Absolutely.
Now, because I have to ask you this. So, because your experiences have been always at the elite industries, Intel, GM, Gs, which are like the dream jobs of any engineer, irrespective of the department. So, does this culture exist in maybe smaller companies also, or is it only limited to the elite industries?
No. I think it should. It should, and because otherwise you cannot grow.
Exactly.
When you grow, and you become a leader like that, because you show the direction to people and you groom tomorrow's leaders. They will grow, and then you will grow even higher. That's how things are.
Probably one of the reasons why these companies became elite in the first place was that they had this work culture to begin with.
Yes. No, I think I won't take it. I think I'm sure the smaller companies also have that.
Yeah.
Okay. So these are core values that one must have, and people who are successful, whoever I have seen, and as I said, I mean, I was fortunate enough to work with extremely smart people, technically smart, who have made. I worked with somebody who was a co-inventor of Bluetooth radio. So think about that impact.
Yeah.
Then Dr. Ajay Bhatt, Intel fellow, he was a co-inventor of USB,
right.
USB technology.
Yeah, I think he appeared in one of those ads of Intel, right?
Yeah, that's not Ajay Bhatt. Okay. Okay. That's an actor. Okay. That's an actor who posed as Ajay Bhatt. Okay, but right. So these are the people I was fortunate to interact with. And if you think about it, this is the level at which they have impacted the industry, and even people like us. I mean, think about without Bluetooth and without USB, where would we be today?
We would not be having this. We would not be having this conversation.
Exactly. So now, how did they reach? And why would such people talk to me when I was probably just 5 years into the industry? But I cannot tell you, Jivan, the way they spoke to me, and it was almost like we are equals. Okay, what do you think? Ajay Bhatt is asking me, okay, I have a problem, and this is what we are thinking to it. What do you think about this? And can you imagine, that's the level of humility which has led them to go that, and the kind of respect they have for such a junior colleague like me. So that is important. So 3 things. Again, to summarize what I was saying: technical knowledge, strategic vision, and mentoring ability. Right. I will also just say this is something that we were told to us in GE. If you look at your career progression, this is probably important for the students who are listening to. If you look at the different phases of your professional career, there are 4 stages: learn, do, guide, shape. Okay, learn, do, guide, shape. So when you first enter the industry, if you're going to a big industry, etc., majority of your part is going to be learning. Okay, it's a learning phase, and you must use it. Go and talk to as many people as possible. Go attend lectures, even if it directly is not related to what you are doing. But at the same time, the do aspect, you must do it very well. Whatever task you have been given, do it and exceed expectations there. Because remember, in the first few years, 1 year or 2 years, it is the stage where you're establishing your credibility. You may have done very well as a student, but I don't know you. So I don't know how good you are going to be in an industry setting. So I will give you something which I know you can, based on my understanding, okay, where you will not fail. So definitely it's not, and so your objective as the employee should be to do it well and to do it exceedingly well, so that now your boss has more confidence on you and gives you a higher responsibility. Okay, so learn and do typically goes, and as you progress, your learning now is less and doing is more. And then as you do things better, and learning never stops, please keep that in mind. Okay, learning never stops. Then as you do things better and better, then you then you rise up, and then you go to the guide mode. Okay. Then they said, okay, this guy is doing well. He does his job well. He also contributes to others. So maybe it's time to give him a project to lead. Let him work with 4 people. He's going to be the leader. And as a leader, you will have your own part to execute. And then you will also be guiding the rest of your team members. Okay. And then this guidance part keep on increasing. So you become a team leader, then you become an overall organization leader, and so on and so forth. And finally, when you reach a certain level of seniority, that is where the word shape comes. So what you do is not just, of course, you are contributing to your own organization, your own company, but you are also shaping the direction of the entire industry, whether it's automotive, whether it's aviation, whether it's power, whether it's semiconductors. Okay. So, of course, USB is not Intel's discovery alone. Ajay Bhatt was involved, but so were other people from other industries. You also start influencing the roadmap. Okay. For example, in electronics, there used to be what is called SIA, Semiconductor Industries Association roadmap. That is getting now replaced by what is called the IEEE HIR, Heterogeneous Integration Roadmap. So these are the roadmaps of different industry sectors, which has inputs from academics, from industry. This is where you are shaping the future, right? So learn, do, guide, and shape. These are the 4 stages, and they will progress. I have seen many people, I can do this, so I am there for 3 years, I'm still being given something. I think I can do better. Yes, of course you can do better, but you have to be patient. It's not important. Definitely, you probably have the capability, but the time will come. So be patient and keep working. And as I said, keep working, keep exceeding expectations. Okay, so that's my, based on my reading of few years in the industry, that's the advice I can give.
So more than a few years, I would say.
Sure. Okay, now your question was...
I can almost feel certain parallels with at least the initial stages of it, with the kind of experiences of beginning PhD student experiences. So first he has to learn, and then he has to do, and then prove himself to his supervisor. And then maybe he'll be given more independence, a greater responsibility, perhaps to even mentor undergraduates, master students. And that's how he gets shaped as a possible future faculty candidate himself.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'll tell you one maybe anecdote what
Professor
Pallab Dasgupta here in computer science, who was a very accomplished researcher and also was the former Dean R&D of IIT Kharagpur.
Yes.
So he was telling somewhere, and I was listening, and he said that when the first PhD student comes and say, okay, respected sir, what should I be working on? I will tell you that, okay, this is what you are going to work on, and maybe this is how you should work on. So he goes, does that job, comes back, said, okay, respected sir, I have done whatever I had to. What next? Then I will tell him what he should be working on, but I won't tell him how.
Yeah.
That's for him to figure out. Then he goes around, goes to the library, figures out how people have done before, etc., etc. And then he maybe comes back after 1 year and says, and comes back doesn't mean that in 1 year they didn't talk, but after 1 year that job is done. And they said, okay, sir, I've completed this problem. What next? I said, when he says what next, I won't even look at him because now you have matured enough to define the next problem yourself.
Exactly.
Okay. And this is what my PhD advisor, since you brought up the PhD student thing, he used to say that your PhD is successful when not only have you successfully done what you had to do to get your thesis, but you have defined problems, which is good enough for somebody else to work on and get his PhD thesis, his or her PhD thesis.
Absolutely.
So this is these are anyway problems
where we can draw the parallel with what you are saying with shaping.
Yes.
Shaping the
learn, guide, learn, do, guide. Okay. Yep. Absolutely. And so coming back to your things, that what were my what skills did I pick up during my student days? Of course, I'll go backwards. PhD definitely enabled me to work on unknown problems. That's the skill. That's a different skill you need, right? I don't know. There's a problem. I don't know what the solution is.
So just to pinpoint it, when you say unknown problems, it doesn't necessarily mean that the specific kind of problems that you did during your PhD. Rather, this innate ability or developing this aptitude to tackle no matter what the unknown problem is. That innate
absolutely,
that
absolutely, and it is very important, because PhD is not just about writing a thesis and a few papers and working on a particular domain. It's an education. Okay, it's an education. It's a skill that you pick up during those whatever 3, 4, 5 years of your doctoral studies, where you gain the confidence that, okay, if I am given a problem for which the solution is unknown, I know how to attack it systematically, how to think through the problem and come to a meaningful solution.
Right.
Okay, so that is what a PhD, or even to a certain extent a master's also teaches you. A research teaches you.
Right.
Okay, so that's the skills you pick up. You can pick it up you don't necessarily have to have a PhD. You can pick it up even through your job as well.
But your PhD gives you a proven,
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so this is something. The other thing that I learned from my PhD, which has definitely helped me, is about how to communicate your ideas. And this is a very important skill, because which has helped me later. If somebody asks me that what are you working on, I should have a 30-second answer, I should have a 3-minute answer, I should have a 30-minute answer. Okay. And depending on who I am talking to and how much time I have, I should be able to drive home the point. Okay. So it's very important. That came out to be very important in industry, because let's say I met one of the very senior managers or one of the very senior technical persons, let's say Ajay Bhatt, and I meet him in the corridor. We are walking towards the cafeteria, or maybe it's called the elevator pitch, right? Because we meet at the elevator and come to
the famous elevator pitch.
Elevator pitch. Okay. And if I now start telling him that what are the equations I solved and what are the algorithms I used and how to solve a PE, etc. Yeah, you don't do that, right?
Yeah.
What is the key message?
Yeah.
Okay. And this is important to pick up this. This I learned during my stint at PhD, because as I said, I was part of this research center, and they used to have this industrial advisory board meetings twice a year. And where I would go and I would probably get 2 to 3 minutes to talk about my PhD research. It was very important to organize your thoughts and communicate what would be the key takeaways. How. So you have to think that what is that I'm going to present, which these people are going to remember. Exactly. What are the 2 or 3 key points I'm going to drive home? Impactful points. Okay.
Right.
So this I picked up here and during my PhD, and technical knowledge definitely, from your UG to PhD, we all pick it up, and it is very, very important, let me tell you, at every stage of life. And finally, I would say as you probably know, Jeevan, informally during my undergraduate days, I used to attend classes regularly, but I also spent a lot of time on extra academic activities.
Yes.
Probably a lot of time in the music room, a lot of time in dramatics rehearsals, on the sports field, not necessarily playing, but cheering for my hall or for my team.
For those of you who don't know, here at IIT Kharagpur, we call our hostels as halls. So our halls of residence are hostels.
Right.
So, and I think you were from the Radhakrishnan, the famous RK Hall. So a lot of pride associated with that.
Yeah, a lot of pride.
Let's not get into that. Let's not get into that. I'm not from RK. I will not allow you to do the RK ka tempo here.
No, so what happened was these exposures and these activities, taught me about teamwork, about how to be happy at your friend's success.
Exactly.
Okay, how to celebrate your peers' success. Again, very important, to be selfless, because if you celebrate somebody else's success, they will also celebrate your success. Let me tell you. Okay, so it's very, very important.
And I think to a certain extent, we do have this culture of celebrating our friends' success compared to the kind of culture that we usually have in our schools, where it's a very individualistic pursuit of one's own excellence. Compared to that, it's not just limited to the IITs or NITs, I believe. Across all engineering institutes, I think there is this culture of camaraderie, of feeling of very, very convivial atmosphere of excelling together, this feeling of celebration, cheerful celebration. I think this And probably the small minority of students who do not really appreciate this might be a good message to them, that even if you are thinking in a very individualistic excellence manner also, even if you try to probably pretend that you are cheering for your friends, that pretense can actually turn you into something better than what you were.
Yeah, and let me tell you, it gives you a lot of happiness and satisfaction.
Yes, ultimately, yeah, absolutely.
Ultimately, life is about being happy. Okay, other things are all secondary, and so try to derive happiness in what you do.